Okay, we are touching down with last but not least. Okay, everybody, please, let's get those tray tables back up. You know, we gotta make some noise. One more time, fellas, ladies, everybody in the house, please. Can you make some noise for Scott Goddard, please? One time for me. Travel Agency's own. You were one of the hardest people to find out anything about on the internet that I've seen in the last couple years.
Which is phenomenal. I must have accomplished my goal.
I like it.
When you smoke more weed than every person you've ever met combined, you realize maybe your name being out there wasn't a good thing up until recently, right?
You got a good scrub going on. I need that Google person that you got on your team. We need to put that together.
Yeah, I don't let them sleep.
Talk to me about the learning and development director position, because that title sounds like it's bold, it's big, it's beautiful for everything that's going on at Travel Agency. Please let me know what that means.
Right on. Well, I've been in cannabis about 7 years. Since 2018. Pennsylvania, I would say I'm like Will Smith. I was raised in Philly, born and raised, except
Nice.
I curse when I rap and I smoke a lot more weed.
Will was doing that too, but he just wasn't on camera with
I
it.
feel like the album Blackout, I've probably never smoked more weed to any other piece of music than that. That Red and Meth really killed
Here
me.
we go.
But as I got into cannabis, started as a bud tender. I'd like to say, especially, I've done every job from the ground up to it to really see what it was like. And so I'm responsible mainly for making the bud tenders as nerdy, as brilliant in customer service, and especially in cannabis science as I possibly can. From a personal side, I've been a lifelong user. I've run into some legal issues before, and it really, I guess, emboldens you from being a person who uses cannabis as something which can affect what you're doing,
Yeah.
just in your individual life, to something now where like there's clearly a larger game going on.
Right.
And it kind of requires a little bit more of like a tithing or a sacrifice from an individual. So I found myself, as I moved up through my career, going from just let's try to sell weed over the counter, which isn't the craziest thing to do, but it always changes, right? I love a job that changes constantly, to a point where with the previous company I worked for, I'm one of 2 people in the country who got to teach law enforcement, district attorneys, regulators, cannabis directly to try to affect their ability to do their jobs and kind of do the other side of support.
Man.
One side is certainly at the dispensary when you arrive and are able to have a great connection with a bud tender, find a great product, like solve the problem of the evening or the weekend. But to then go into a room double this size with 80 state troopers and a bunch of lawyers and talk about how they do their job and what they see success in cannabis as. And then realizing that regardless of what side of the counter you're on, cannabis creates this possibility of connection that doesn't seem, given retail is still the rules, but I don't know any retail that makes like a shirt make you get along with somebody who hates your guts, kind of, right? Or like a retailer that makes like X amount of millions of dollars a month in CVS. It's like unrealistic almost how cannabis can touch so many people, whether or not you want it to in that way.
Yeah, and show up in so many places that you're just like confused about as well too. Like you talk about the
Like,
CVS,
everything opposite feels like upside down.
What? Up is down, left is right, all of that. I mean, I feel like just hearing some of that, I feel like I'm already about to just take my first semester of weed college right now. I was like, I'm feeling like I'm learning so much throughout this whole process. I got my syllabus, my professors are coming out. I feel like the bud tender position is such a pivotal position in all of the industry that it's a fantastic thing that you get to educate this group of people in particular, because that's the front line. And they are, like we talked about, representative of helping the consumer understand how to navigate that space. How has teaching bud tenders or training in that space, how has that affected what you see play out in the education of the consumer that comes into your space?
Well, I think one of those things that everybody sort of suffers from, if I can say it that way, is everybody remembers their first experience buying legal cannabis.
Yeah.
Given there's a track record, which is amazing, of how much you had to sort of navigate the alleyways and the code words and the beepers and cell phones, depending on how old you are, to be able to get your cannabis. But now it's like a well-lit room with happy people who look like they've cleaned themselves, right?
Exactly.
And you find yourself in this headspace where it's almost less acceptable.
Right.
Where you're like, I tell people all the time, you see that dumpster? Can we smoke weed like behind it? Like that's generally where I was always at. Like that's where I found my best.
This feels comfortable. This is
there's no expectations, there's no pressure. And then we get to a point where now there's a receipt. I swear the first time I bought weed, I thought like the cops were just going to be paddy wagging outside. Just be like, no,
we got you now.
We got you done. Like just put it on yourself. And so whenever I see people come in, it could be their first experience at a dispensary, could be in a New York dispensary, or just legal cannabis, right? They could be smoking in and out just before they got in. I still think that there's this ultimate amount of respect. I think you kind of said the sophistication of the New York consumer, but even above that, to give somebody the chance to know that this could be different.
Right.
a lot of folks come in even with experience. Like I've smoked it all, right? Every dispensary kind of offers a very similar menu. And I think that there's something about the human experience where weed is one of those rare things where you can do the same thing and it changes every time you do it. Right?
Yeah.
It's like every time you step into the river of cannabis, it's a different river and it's a different you.
Hmm.
And I think that being able to teach people sort of like this interesting philosophical poetic way of customer service, it's no longer 3 talking points and a retort. It's no longer the amount of money you might save for a thing. It's actually like trying to affect a metaphysical part of their lives through a very physical interaction, right? A very verbal interaction. But I think the best thing weed does is nonverbal. It's almost like you can just sesh with somebody and chill, listen to the music and not say anything. You have the best conversation without even saying any words.
Yeah. It gets you to tune in, I would say. And what I hear you queuing up is more empathy in the whole process for, let me listen to why somebody's coming in here before I just start giving you stuff.
Now you touched on something that was kind of interesting, talking proprioception. I'm a big fan of health and cannabis. And
Come on now.
And clearly you gentlemen are well
That
qualified.
is what we do.
Could I throw a question at you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm here for it.
With your experience with weed, and I'm one who uses it all the time for motion, right? I don't know if I've worked out sober in a good minute.
I like how you're starting this party off. We're going to be solid friends, my friend.
But would you consider cannabis to be a performance-enhancing drug?
I would say it depends on the sport. Much like I would say sport depends on the sport. So it's kind of like there are some sports that are definitively not healthy. I would just say you would be hard pressed to say that as much as I love and I have good friends that are professional fighters and they do all different stuff, it's hard for me to tell you that getting punched in the head is a healthy thing for you to do. It's a requisite for your sport, right? Mm-hmm. So in a similar way, if you're talking about something that requires accuracy, something that requires maybe high cognitive function and also multi-tiered processing, it's going to be debatable. I know some people who can handle multiple tasks very well. I know some people that's like, I need to be focused on this thing right now for it to be great.
Right on, I see.
Right? So athlete to athlete is different. And I would say sport to sport is different. But anytime you get to intentionally breathe, I would say the likelihood of you being able to control your movement is going to be different by and large. Now, there's also going to be benefits from the THC plant happening, but if you're inhaling rhythmically and you understand how your body is moving with that, your body's going to move better, right? So you take down maybe some of the things that's telling you to not move as fast or to not move as fluidly, or you don't know all the rules. It's kind of like going all the way back to Fab talking about the jazz thing. Right. Take a little bit of this cannabis and you're feeling more jazzy in your body. Okay, if you are able to control that the right way, I think it opens up different doors that a lot of people in their mobility language, if you will, can develop a little bit more.
Wow, I like that. I like that. See, as I dove into that, especially as a cannabis nerd and a man who loves science to it, I realized, and being able to thankfully talk to a lot of amazingly respectable medical professionals who've done a lot of that work, that even in the prescription of what marijuana does, right? As we look at the science and say, what does it tend to do in interacting with the human body in an intimate way? And then you go, well, how would they have known this was how it works?
Yeah.
One of the big things they said is motor skill functionality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how many concerts have you been to? Do you really think that would have gone as well if they were sober? It's like, clearly it doesn't screw your motor skills up too much.
Yeah.
The guy's shredding right now.
Yeah.
That drummer's going off. And accuracy, even given a sport is very much an accuracy and a limitation, I must feel like if it's creative accuracy, we might actually see an increase.
Yeah.
But obviously if it's more so just performative.
Yeah.
And I got to, thankfully, I'd say my dream blunt rotation happened once. A podcast that I ran for weed for a little bit, I got to smoke weed and interview Ricky Williams.
Come on now.
Sort of got to talk to him in the same thing. I was like, you would know more than anybody. Does it enhance performance? You know, you were the NFL guy who really represented this culture kind of imploding on itself in the early 2000s. And he said, yeah. He was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, my best seasons were the ones where I could smoke.
Yeah.
In his own mind, at least just tapping into to his quote, was like, I can't imagine getting hit that hard and then not letting somebody smoke weed to recover. So it seemed even more so it wasn't the game as much as it was like you can actually get back from all that damage to the body, right?
Yeah, a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, a lot of restorative, like sleep, just getting into better profiles for sleep and what that does for your hormones and everything else. If it's aided in any way, it's going to be helpful. I have a tendency to believe that people who are under disproportionate amounts of stress, whether it's physical, like another person equally as skilled, equally as sized, running directly at you as fast as they physically can, enthusiastically, that's going to be some stress on your body, right? Or the type of stresses that we face in these unprecedented, circumstances that we find ourselves in these different days. You should have a wide berth of options for you to take that stress down. in that wide berth of options for you to take that stress down, we get into that functionality component again, right? So coming into a dispensary where you can actually see, oh, this is for this, that is for that. I can layer these things together. I can help myself through the places that I know I need to get through, and it's a fantastic time to be around. I got to imagine that having seen as much as you have seen in both the elevation of the store and how everything has come to fruition, and seeing how this market has changed so frequently and so fast, to also what consumers are looking for, you're hearing different things, I would imagine, when people walk inside these stores.
Yeah, the journey that somebody goes through in cannabis, I'd say, is probably more accelerated than it is in a lot of other areas where people sort of get stuck into a rut or drop into a hobby that's really intense. Foodies clearly dominate a lot with just the ability to find new flavors and things. But in cannabis, within the first 3 months, somebody starts in a very specific, I just need to find the one solution, right?
Yeah.
The stigma tells us that I don't talk too long about it the first time. If not, the amount of stress that in the building is just available, or the amount of excitement, hopefully.
Right.
Usually makes people, their first visit is rather truncated, right?
Yeah.
And I find that, within the first 10, we find somebody go from beginner to rather advanced in their own journey, where it almost shows the body learns cannabis non-verbally, and then we do a very poor job trying to describe it. I tell people, an indica, shoes on or shoes off. It's easier to say that than to say well, it's partially sedative like a weird tea, or you might find that it encourages sleep or some somnolence. It's actually, I just have a better job. Do you want to remember what happened at the end of that movie on Netflix, or would you rather not care? Because it really is what it's for more than what it does, almost.
Yeah.
I think of that tooling because every 7 in the morning versus 7 at night, two completely different experiences regardless of the cannabis involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think is it the weed? It's I'm being enhanced, right? My performance, whether or not be physical, mental, or metaphysical, is generally all in different ways being able to be affected, or at least supplemented in some way by a non-mammalian thing, right? We're eating a plant that's just giving us a chemical that we produce ourselves, and it's a rather weak version of it, and it still does amazing things, things that naturally, if we'd all found it yesterday, we'd be on the front cover of Time, right? But we're still trying to dodge the bullets every once in a while of either not regulation than just the judgment of others. It just shows, I think, sometimes if something is that powerful, everybody grabs it. It makes it really hard to control. It's when you have a good idea, and I think creative types know it all the time. You say, I was thinking of this cool book, and your friend of me is you should do this, this, and this. I used to be real offended by that, right? I was yo, let me get the idea out. But I realized when you have a good idea, people grab it so quick, sometimes you don't even get the sentence out.
Yeah.
And we, as a study, as a market, as a science, feels that way, where everybody knows there's something about it, which makes everything enhanced. But we can't quite say it without the proofing and the finances, so everybody kind of sits at bay, tempting that foot into that 3-foot section, trying to get in.
Yeah, I think it flirts with the idea of prescription without getting into prescription.
Right.
It's knowing the health and wellness market for a very long time, and any kind of supplement line, those things are very similar. Where it's kind of hey, I could tell you that this is for this and this is recommended for that, but I can't give this to you to treat X. I'm not going to write a prescription to do here's what you need, here's where you go. Now, you can make recommendations all day, and those benefit statements are what you see on the shelves today. Right, any of those benefit statements, any of those spaces where, again, the moods and all of the different types of language that come across sound a lot like what you see on a GNC shelf. It's just now, hey, we got some more SKUs and we got some more use cases for people to find themselves in.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest studies that I'd say cracked open for me, and it felt very validating, I'd say, especially in the health and wellness area, right? Because the runner's high had always been such a mythos. It's this thing. It's not really a high, guys, but for some reason we can't avoid the language. No matter how good of a trying they could, if a thesaurus never worked, they just had to call it a high. And lo and behold, it is legitimately as close as you can get to a marijuana high, just on your natural chemistry. I thought, what a great thing to build a bridge, but almost in a way showing how deep the stigma was, that even when the bridge was clear, you could run right across it technically and metaphysically. People were still nah, it's not really a high though. I'm not really getting high, I'm just doing it for me. I think the same with people who do long tattoos, right? Your body starts to release chemistry, which supports you. It's I don't want you to fall out. Here's some anti-inflammatories, here's some things to manage the pain, and kind of changes what those things mean. I feel with cannabis, performance, and health, pain isn't the same thing.
Yeah.
You can endure a different version of what you thought was pain is always wrong. I'm you get into the right headspace, you realize it tells you things, right? It's all nonverbal things, so it's hard to decipher in your language. But I feel that's really being in your body, right? That level of proprioceptive presence that you mentioned.
Yeah, I will say just briefly, my relationship with pain has changed with my relationship with cannabis exclusively. I would say throughout, I am tending to be more in the spaces where the bombs are, where the tinctures are, today, coming off of a car accident, history of getting all types of different leg surgeries and stuff like that. I remember the first day that I came home from the hospital, and I have a lot of people in my family that have had interactions with opioid-based drugs that I didn't want to take coming back off of the surgery, right? So I remember sitting very clearly on the couch, and I had to break it down to my mom. I was like, hey, listen, check this out. I am in pain, and I have something that's going to help me. Now, I don't know how you're going to feel about this particularly right now, but I know how I'm going to feel in about good 10, 15 minutes. We're going to have to get through this. My mother's like, wait, hold on, what? There's a vaporizer? You dry herb, all the rest of that? Hey, can I actually try that? And my first night home from the hospital, leg up, in pain, but still able to find moments where that pain was tolerable, on the couch with my mom using a vaporizer, watching Broad City while I'm trying to recover my leg. Talk about
good day.
Top day in life. You can cue the Ice Cube right now. It was a good day, right? In your own walks through your journey with the plant, having had previous issues or like bumps into trouble with incarceration, or to see like where it literally is today, right? What are some of the stories that stick out to you where you knew that, hey, I'm doing something different, or I'm doing something that this is going to be a passion of mine?
Well, I was raised Jewish and Catholic, so I like to call that the double major in guilt. It was just brutal. Everything was my fault, right?
You got double genuflect right there.
Oh, and so like my mom, who she's a Trinidad born and raised woman, she moved here in '69, which is always a good year for your mom. She still consumes. I'd like to say that I always was as much of the mule for her as I could, because I was like,
yeah,
I feel like I should be the one putting at risk. Like, you made me, can I at least like help you out?
Right.
And it was like a paramount day. Me, my two best friends will say the same. It was like the day we became adults in a very cultural way, as opposed to just like hitting a certain age and having to pay taxes differently. I pimped out my shed, right? It was like,
nice.
We moved out to the burbs after my parents' divorce, and it was like, I got to not be in the house, because somehow that's the victory, right? Like, it's either a bike or like sort of a building. And so we'd go back there, and slowly I went from the dare kid who was like, Mom, why does it smell like weed in here, to being like, I'm just doing it in the back, but like, we're still not really connecting, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're literally just like running to our corners, eating the same cake, and then running back and being like, why is she so weird? And then one day, and she used to come up to New York, because I'm a Philly-based guy. So I remember it was a Jamaican red hair that she got up here. She'd get like a 9-gram bag. And me and my two buddies, right, probably just finished playing like Smash Brothers on N64 or something, like very
Love
90s for us. We sit down at what my kitchen table was. My mom comes down. She says, you guys want to smoke this? And she's just holding a fucking blunt. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
this just happened?
Like, I'm like, should I make up an excuse real quick to my friends? Like, we were all like kind of excited, but I was like, they're a part of that story too.
Yeah.
And like, what ensued is the best 90 minutes of my life, I want to say, after that.
Man.
Where like, I got to see my mom as a human.
Yeah.
Not as like the goddess who has to do everything right, but I'll give her a lot of grace. Like, it was like, wow, it's crazy. Like, you did just 12-hour nursing shifts through the divorce to try to give us everything we needed. And I used to torture you for smoking weed, like as the kid. Like, come on, Mom, what are you doing? It's like, you literally probably doing the best thing you could to remove the stress, cook good food, manage the family, and not go insane for like years, just being a super mom. And it was sort of that realization of connection where it was like, oh, I'm no longer just like your son with the weird expectations and all these kind of unfair things you do to your parents. It's like, oh, wow. How did you survive all this? Like, what was it like back in Trinidad? You know, like, you start sharing these amazing stories where the distance was no longer generational.
Yeah.
It was like, now I'm hanging out with my best friend who also happened to be the woman who made me and taught me everything I know. And so over the years, I mean, even in high school, you know, I'm a very big introvert. I was very much a nerd back then. And all of a sudden I realized when I started being the weed dealer, like, why are all like the popular kids at my house smoking weed now? Like,
Changes
I
up.
don't necessarily get along with you, but like, we're starting, right? Like, this whole thing is sort of changing up. And so the connectivity, I think, was always a theme for me. You could be out of state, you could be with people you never met, and all of a sudden, like 5-6 minutes later, you say an embarrassing story about when you chiefed the bowl and spit the cherry out, and everybody wants to tell you about their weird story.
Exactly.
I thought, how different than the locker room where like you say I dropped the ball and everybody talks about the touchdown that you should have had. It's like, it just makes all the weaknesses into strengths. And I feel like I'm infatuated with that as a guy who's sort of a contrarian as well.
Yeah.
Very big into balance. So I know that breaking up with the family unit was one, but on the opposite side, what I feel like was my villain arc, like Marvel-wise, I should have like a mask on one side and like really be fucking torturing people. But
that internet was scrubbed for a reason.
Right, I'm telling you, man. It started out in that same era, living at Mama Duke's house, and at the age of 16, I was very good at weed. I'm still very good at weed, but at that point, it was a little bit different. We got up to about 5-6 pounds a week of selling it, right? It's just basic teenagers. So it was a lot of moving pieces. And eventually, the police were able to notice those moving pieces. And I saw myself come home the 1st of June, the year 2001, right? I'm like 15, 16. It's 11 unmarked squad cars outside of my house. So I didn't go home then.
Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
kind of realize that today's going to be a little different than every other day of your life. And maybe you might not really be a free man. And I was very glad I sold 2 pounds the day before, because I would not know you, right? I would not be here. The licensing structure and everything you pay meant you cannot work if you have any check marks, right? They were kind of on a very, very stern way of being able to think of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went from a slap on the wrist, thank God, right? Like where my mom was tortured and her nursing license and custody, you know, everything was up in grabs.
Wow.
I realized as a son, I could do a better job, right? I could do a much better job. But then on the other side, fast forward through all the processing of the system and the weird gray states, and am I in trouble or not? And what do you learn, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to say, like, what do you learn when you've done something wrong, but it hasn't turned out as wrong as it could? It's like, should I just never smoke weed again, right? Like that's kind of the default. It's like, that doesn't make sense. Mom still kind of like gets it in sometimes. And so you're trying to kind of figure out how to be a better person. Lo and behold, I didn't realize, you know, my early 30s, I got into weed. I'm 40 now, so I've been in 7 years, that I would then be able to sort of change it and go, you mean I can teach cops weed? It's like, that's so weird. They literally put like guns in my face and like threaten my family. And like, I kind of feel like I have every reason to just stonewall. Like I should. I was like, but weed connects people. So I guess I'm going to walk into this room with like $2,000 worth of weed and devices and teach them what I think they should know so they can enforce it better so I can stay safe. Even though I don't think any of us think that's going to happen today. But like, what other chance do we have?
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I'm just too high to believe or to at least understand that. Like, I think there's a chance. I was like, if everybody here is willing to be awkward, let's do it. And it was that thing about cannabis that seemed to constantly enhance what normally might have been just like a basic day. And at the end, there's always a couple people who stay after, right? There's always that person who didn't say anything during the presentation. Afterwards, they talk your ear off for like an hour. And like 3 cops. I really love the smell of it. I always wondered this, you know, once my grandmother started using it, I thought it was cool. And I was like, weird. I thought you were just going to hit me with regulations and what am I supposed to do when this happens?
Yeah, exactly.
And much like what we're doing here, they just came and started sharing stories that were like confusing, but they're like, but I want to believe. Like, I want to believe that this helped her because it's my mom. I don't think she's lying, but
right.
Then I do my job and I see this other version of things that I'm not sure I understand. And so then being like, it's interesting because as a non-weed user or as a law enforcement officer, to be able to see somebody else's pain through that, even though clearly there's a politic there that like I kind of want to, you guys kind of made my life really tough for a while. Like, why not back away? Felt like only this weird plant would create a balance where there otherwise would be conflict, right? It's like left and right foot. It's not a conflict. You just have to use one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the same. This is something that's really creating these environments where growth is possible in a way that I don't think I would see in alcohol or any of these other sort of like good time industries as well. And so from this point onward, once I started to see that and how it kind of terraformed people's minds, it's like, oh, I'm in. And if anything, like willing to walk into the uncomfortable fire and burn a little bit, well, it's like somebody's got to, right? Like somebody's got to take the risk, as we've always done pre-legality, but to continue upgrading that so there's a chance that other people could access and possibly see the same thing.
What are you most proud of that you got a chance to accomplish as you're learning and building on that basis of knowledge?
It might, you know, from one side, there's always an outside. I always feel like if I'm able to help other people, there's a level of happiness or fulfillment that's like unreasonable. Like being useful is such a great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But from a personal side, I used to be a breakdancer. I saw in yours too. You're like break beats and backspins sometimes.
Come on, man.
Right? So I know what it's like to have a knee kind of go out on you. And I did breakdancing. I was doing weightlifting and BMX dirt jumping on like my late teens, early 20s. So very, very active and a lot of impact stuff. Twisted my back up like a freaking pretzel, right? I was like Forrest Gump. I was like crooked as a politician, right? They say. And as I'm trying to go through recovery, and I'm much like you gentlemen, like I want to be healthy. I'm not really sure if I know how to get there. I didn't quite have too many people in my corner. I was on probably, 7.5 milligram hydrocodone, which is just Vicodin ES, extended release for it for an all day. There were 75 milligrams of ibuprofen on it, 11 straight years, right? Because they were very fine with being like, just take these.
Forever. Just
you look young and healthy, right? Just take these. You'll be fine. And I kept being like, I don't really want to. Like, I don't want to be Rush Limbaugh eventually. Like, I'd rather be present.
Yeah.
And by the time I got into medical cannabis in my state, which was 2018, I was barely taking a prescription at that point, but haven't touched, like wouldn't even think to. It's in the cabinet almost as like a relic.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it silly how these used to be a part of your health? I used to carry an ibuprofen like a freaking little candy shaker, like I had Pez. All my friends knew. It's the only way I could like stay upright. My back was in such pain.
Right.
It's like, I don't even take it for a normal headache anymore. It's insane how something could show you your health through a different mechanism. And for a person who really was focused on it, thought, isn't it reps, hydration, nutrition, macronutrients, you just think about all the things that have been studied, but it was like, it's actually like wanting to be alive, wanting to heal. That heals you almost quicker than just the ingredients do. And so I felt like it taking me from this very logical, verbal, evidence base to like a spiritual individual who could really hear somebody say a story with no data and be like, I believe you. That definitely had to have happened. Like, why would you say otherwise? It made life expand almost in a way. You accept the negative and the positive instead of just looking at one and ignoring the other one. So it created a lot more perspective in ways, and I thought I had good perspective, Incredible for that.
Man, I love how your story dovetails back to a central theme of balance and where that comes from. If you had to think about balance in both what you see across the dispensaries playing out in your own experience with what's happening here specifically, but also in the industry, like what kind of stories and narratives of balance comes up for you?
So I was lucky enough to be able to work across 13 different state markets. This will be my 14th. We didn't have anything in New York at the previous company. So it's been Connecticut to Florida, Vegas, and Arizona to Chicago, and seeing how each market really has its specific culture. Generally, a CVS type brand will sell the same thing everywhere in the same way. And there's an efficiency to that, which I don't think is necessarily bad. There's a cost to it as well.
Yeah.
But as you get into each market more specifically, and you really start to see what those cultural differences are, you realize that like some people will just tithe, right? People who don't really care too much about cannabis will buy it anywhere. But the folks who've been into it too long, they know the value is inherent. They know it's not just a matter of access, like we always were looking for it. I feel like those are the folks who really, as you kind of said, they look for the homegrown experience. They look for the stories that make sense.
Yeah.
Even the travel agency. I mean, I still live in Philly, so it's a 6-hour commute whenever I get up here. And people are like, why would you do that? I was like, there's something special about when people care that much. And I don't think any other human, like if you were to say what is like a human instinct, I think it's the ability to tell another human cared about what they were doing.
Yeah.
Like it's very hard to be like, somebody didn't care about that table and somebody cared about that one. So you can kind of feel it in the energy, and cannabis brings that a lot per market. So when you visit a dispensary, when you use a product, you can kind of tell how much human intention has been put into it through its quality a little bit more, especially the more you're with cannabis. And I feel like that is going to dictate a lot of success. However, things like COVID, when you have a whole market go down and then you have smaller operators not able to survive those really financially difficult times.
Yeah.
The big fish eat all the small fish, and you kind of get back into what is the McDonald's, Burger King version of fast food. Like there's 5 big ones and a lot of little ones. So I'm one to think that in preserving licensing, and as the previous gentleman said, a lot of it is in the structure of the law, but I think a lot of it's in the passion of the operator. You can't pull money out of the system too quickly. Much like the travel agency, like you kind of have to put it into the community to see if you can create progress instead of just change.
Yeah.
Weed definitely brings that potential, but with so many interested parties for so many different reasons, the difficulty is navigating it, not like losing focus. I think a lot of people, as soon as money gets tight or regulations get weird, you kind of go back to traditional business, just min-maxing your balance sheet. And I think it's better if you realize, what was the whole point of this in the first place, right? To take a picture with folks during the successful moment and realize that there are folks that you wanted to be in that picture, not people that just had to be. And I think in a lot of that same way, like, is it just to profit? We could spell anything to profit potentially, right? Like those markets exist. They're a lot easier than cannabis to survive. But why cannabis then? To ask everybody. And for me, it's a personal reason I can tell for you gentlemen as well. And I wonder from the operator side, with the largest, the fastest moving, like, is your intention also to change what that picture looks like? Or is it just the same picture every 10 years? AI, internet, weed, like the next thing, it's all the same people who were able to do it before.
The next big boom, kind of wash, rinse, repeat kind of situation.
Opportunists. I mean, again, I know hate to it. There's somewhat of that design, but I'd still rather have people who are absolutely purposeful and intentional. That to me is going to create the right outcome in perpetuity as opposed to just profitability.
Right.
With that being said, what would you say it takes to future-proof a black-led cannabis brand?
Ooh, talk about difficult things to do. Future-proof it. I feel like I live in the future at all times. Sometimes weed especially helps you get back into the present. But the difficulty, I'd say, moving forward, for any operator who's going to be especially a unique operator, either from their culture or from the way that they design their operation, especially in the Black community, is being able to make partnerships with like-minded individuals. I think that much like if I need a loan for a car, I don't really think of the bank as much as just the opportunity to get the money. Hey, do you have a loan? Oh, is yours a lower amount? And I think that there's a lot of that happens just due to the need, right? Banking is always also one of those frustrating things of cannabis. But if you're going to future-proof your business, creating jobs instead of creating profitability. I think that a lot of companies this is the old Simon Sinek, like for Apple versus Dell, like what's the difference? It's like people line up at an Apple store for a week for a product you can buy anywhere, but at Dell they still make a good product, but there's no culture to it. And I think a big part is trying to bring the people along with you to future proof it. So as opposed to just creating success, kind of taking the harder and longer road. I think like building a castle takes a lot longer than building a quick house. Which one's going to be standing after the storm? And so to really take your time to build your structure, sometimes, right, I've probably been a part of like 70 store openings. You realize if you hit all your marks, somebody's like, we can open a day early, right? We could do this stuff a little earlier. And like, no, we should just stick to the plan. And I think that's what happens. A lot of people are like, we could, it's like, stick to the plan. That's why we started and that's how we should finish. But it's very difficult with the amount of, I'd say, complexity of the market. A lot of times people will change. Not tell anybody necessarily. I've worked for some of these operators. And then at the end of the day, you're like, everybody lost their job, but you walked away with a good bank. Like, was that the point? I thought we were here to help people or to like at least heal them a little bit.
Where do you get that discipline from, the state of course, when you have a mission that's pretty ironed out?
From an individual standpoint, I'd say it's the right amount of trauma.
Okay.
If you've been through the right amount of trauma in your life, you realize that when things get difficult, it doesn't mean you should change how you act because you hopefully at some point in your previous life had run into a situation that was so hard and all you could do was endure it and realize that that is possible. I think some people are just afraid, so much so, fear being such a big part of our psyche, that as soon as they run into it and know they represent other people, which I can understand. I mean, you have 100 jobs and they all depend on you and you start to see the numbers slip down. It's a level of stress that's very hard to manage. I would dare find you the right freaking strain, I could tell you what. But in that moment, I could see why somebody might be capsized by that idea of like, I just need anything. And then you make a bad relationship and that may dictate the rest of your possibility of success. I think in those moments it's tough to be like, it's okay. I believe that when the sun comes back out again, people will still buy weed. And I feel like anybody who smokes enough weed is like, people will never stop buying it. It's kind of a forever product, but the way in which they buy it certainly can be changed over time. So to me, if you're not truly in cannabis, you don't know that. You haven't experienced that. And so a lot of times those folks might splinter out. But if you've been in cannabis a while, they're coming back. You just got to do it right.
Is there anything that you are hopeful to see happen as this continues to develop?
Oh, I think in this market, as you guys said, lounges coming out soon.
Yeah.
I think that licensing structure is going to be great. Once it gets to micro licensing in restaurants.
Okay.
I think that's really where you see a more communal thinking from the sort of entrepreneurial side. Because when you can use cannabis in your normal routine and it doesn't have to be a special detour, I think that's when you really have this like full bleed into the culture, because I can just eat it on a wing over there. I could drink it in a cool smoothie at this place.
Right.
All knowing it contributes to other states of mind or even potential health. And that's when I think the stigma removes itself.
Yeah.
Because then it's almost like, oh, you didn't know? You could just do that down there, versus people being like, oh, you do that? I can't believe you do that. Is that why you always smell? And you're like, yeah, that's generally why I always smell. Or I smell strongly like something else trying to mask it. I think it's that, still that last part of stigma. It doesn't exist, I think, in the common area, but once you put on the suit and tie, once you get the really good job, all the fear comes back. Oh, but what if it makes me lose a thing? And I go like, no, I understand. The feeling of loss or the possibility of loss really can change the landscape of decision.
I understand that. And I also see that the ubiquity of people with really good jobs coming in and out of these dispensaries is definitely here too, because they're all throughout the city.
After COVID, it was all masked up though. I saw a dude with 3 masks, is like barely see his eyelids, and he's just like, it's like, I can tell you're a lawyer for but like you really,
the rest of you said
you really read those regulations tight, man.
He's like, I was never here. Don't understand.
I was paranoid before I smoked.
Yeah.
Wait a while then, man.
It's a fantastic thing to see how wide of a just audience it touches and really brings into. So you talked about starting as bud tender and moving through, man. I started in delivery, moved into the bud tending, took the OCM classes, worked on the brand side. So I've jumped around a lot, I know startup when I see it, and I understand what happens in startup logic, and I understand how startup ecosystems are built. I very much see that happening in these spaces like these, and see where an idea can turn into an industry in an instant.
Honestly, you just had weed, as what I used to tell people. I was like, now again, you can pick a state, because depending on where they're under development, everywhere is going to potentially go in a similar direction. They're all different stages, but it's like delivery, right? Who would even think it's that big of a deal? Amazon killed it. Nobody really can innovate. And you're like, weed. And you're like, oh, we can make money on that again. You're like, what? Crazy. It's like just cooking food. A guy sells wings for like $10 each.
Right.
Because they're medicated. I was like, you will definitely not have to cook as much on a Sunday to make your profitability. Like, what a great thing to create an opportunity to reinvigorate businesses that may not have had great standings, but also to create, obsessed with myofascial release and cannabis. Like,
come on now.
Such a painful feeling. it at least can get you to the point where you realize you can endure it, right? And what it's for. I think recovery, especially, like a whole industry publicly could come through as the regulations allow to just help people feel like they can heal in groups with actual communal support instead of feeling like just take this 1,000 times concentration and you'll be good.
Yeah.
Or you won't remember, whatever the case is, you know.
So we got a segment on the show. We talked about the recovery. We got a segment called Relax Responsibly. Scott, I got to understand, you're doing a lot of different things. You're moving, it sounds like, multiple different states in a day sometimes, you know. How are you relaxing, and what's your relaxation ritual look like?
You know, it's a good question. I would say if you asked me that 2 months ago, I would say I don't know, because I just started this job and I was like, dude, I'm eating an 18-hour commute per week. I'm not really sure how on the train you're just stressed, and like on the subway you're stressed, and the heat and the differences in temperature. I realize, and a lot of folks say, like, do you meditate? And I imagine what they're thinking is like, do you sit in a specific area with specific things around you? And I was like, yeah, all the time. In my car, on the ride to the train station, on the train itself. I realize there's a lot more opportunity to be in your body, even in a crowd of people, even when you're busy. And so I find that because I love to be so engaged otherwise, how would you relax? And I was like, oh, everywhere and anywhere you possibly can, as opposed to believing it's only once I'm home when my shoes are off, or it's only when that TV show is on. Smell science ended up being a big study. And so because smell and memory are the two closest tied sort of things together,
sure.
I realized that if you can create that smellscape where you are, it'll bring you into that headspace. Sometimes it's a person. That's the weirdest stage where I'm like, I don't want to tell this person, like, you smell like home. I don't want I probably should leave, you know?
You got to be selective with that one.
You got to be very much like, you know, some social nuances there to navigate. But it was this idea where it was like, okay, why don't I use that to my advantage? Like, why, when I get into that hotel room, why don't I bring in the same scent I have at home with me so I can create that same overall feeling? Maybe it's conversational. It could be, you know, a video that you watch all the time. But I felt like it's all in here. You could numb my senses. I'd still be able to get home. And so in trying to figure out in those moments where I wanted to escape the traffic jam, the long line, I realized I can be the most present here. Why am I parking so close to the gym if I'm trying to create motion?
Yeah.
And it's like that insane thing where like, well, maybe on the one day I had to park far, I just like justified it. It's cool, man. At least you're like warming up before you get in. But I was like, no, what about on the days where you don't need it? Make a decision instead of just defaulting, become hyper intentional, and then realize, like, where would I stress? You get to catch it before it kind of takes you. We can create an even further distance between that automatic thinking and that gap. And then now I'm doing car yoga, right? Like now I'm meditating on the train by being able to get into my psyche a little bit better and just relax it. Body-wise, I can't say it necessarily works because like, man, my swamp ass is killing me. Like, oh, this one leg's going numb. Like, we're trying to make sure that we can get through this nice heat wave in a proper format.
Yeah.
But my mind is right. And to me,
Okay.
that was kind of the thing. Like, breathe is one of the easiest things, right? Motion, release tension, breathe through it. And once I'm left with that, it's like, just give me some good food and people who hopefully like me. What else is there to a good day, you know?
Man, talk about it. It's like good food, good people. I'm around for all of it.
Good joint, you know?
It sounds like we in the right space.
Absolutely.
Oh man, I'm thinking about like obviously my life has been, we talked off mic before about like injuries and stuff and how I came into weed, but when I was in high school, my prom date was a weed smoker. I didn't start smoking weed until college, and like how you felt about your mom, I was very much like, oh, I hate this, the way you smell and all of that, and like eventually, like looking back now, I was like, wow, like the evolution that took place with my consumption, with my relationship to pain from being injured, and just being able to fully stand in this space of like, yeah, it's a stigma, but like I'm a part of that generation that's changing that stigma, right? Like people look to me like, yo, where do you buy weed from? Like, because they trust that the stuff that I smoke is, you know, coming from a good source, you know. So I guess my question in all of this is, you know, I know you spoke about being in it and then like teaching other people, but where do, you know, you get the, you know, the people skills to share the humanization of this thing that has been destigmatized for so long, you know?
You know, we bring some of it too, because I think when you make a mistake and you're high, it doesn't seem nearly as bad, right? Like it kind of takes some of the edge off of that feeling of expectation. Oh, I didn't do it right. So I think that with especially a room full of people, which obviously there can be just so much energy, right? That itself can be a lot to sort of manage, that there's this aspect of safety, right? Psychological safety if you go into the study of it, but just people are able to access a feeling of safety in their environment.
I want to pause you real quick. In college, I did a paper on you had to compare yoga to something because I took yoga. I'm a yoga teacher, all that jazz. I compared it to smoking only because the breathing aspect and breathing, like your exhale is directly connected to your safety.
Yeah, it's the
And
longer you exhale, right? The more you can relax your system.
because if you're not breathing, obviously you don't feel safe, and that's when you get into the fight and flight.
Yeah, hyperventilation is a sign of stress, obviously. Right?
But yeah, my fault. I didn't mean to cut
No,
you.
no,
But
that's phenomenal. I actually there's a on a slightly tangent to it. I bet it's more so Asian related. I want to say it was given to me as like a Chinese study, but I don't know if that was accurate. The idea of like a sacred breath. They said if you want to test your health through breathing, it's 3 levels of the test. Take 1 breath over 30 seconds, then train yourself. Take 1 breath over 2 minutes, and if you really want to be like the master, take 1 breath over 5 minutes. And it is incredibly challenging. The heat, right, as your body's like struggling for air. I realized just because of like, ancient days of holding in blunts when I didn't know better, like ripping huge bongs and trying to hold it to like coughing in your own body and shit. They usually say that we have a higher VO2 max than a lot of folks. Like we can hold a lot more oxygen in our lungs because we've been kind of training that way for a while.
yeah,
And I realized like I hit 2 minutes, like just like, ooh, let me put this down real quick and breathe in for 1 minute only and breathe out for 1 minute only. And it was like, wow, I didn't realize I actually had that capability. And then awareness floods, right? Because you're like controlling your breathing brings a certain mental state that's so incredible. So it was something that through some of those practices, I realized like understanding of self immediately relates to understanding who's in front of you. If I'm scared, they might be scared. And then that level of vulnerability that you can give to say, I also feel that way, but we can be safe both feeling scared because we're sharing it.
Yeah.
Share good things that get better, share bad things that get worse. It's like to share it and feel safe as a result. It's now probably a lot of my core of how I try to treat people. It's not so much based on love and kindness, although that's clearly huge tools to use, and empathy. It's kind of just measuring like if a person feels safe enough to be authentic. So sometimes it's like you might be too tired, underfed, or stressed to afford it. You can only afford being alive and being capable, but you can't afford truly getting into the depth. So then in myself, I kind of asked, like, is today a day where you feel unsafe, right? I'm a big Dune fan, but fear is the mind killer.
Okay.
It's a huge theme in that book and one in my life. I think like it destroys your ability to think clearly. So it's constantly thinking of that room of people, even if they're exuberant and want to sell as much cannabis as possible, there's going to be a time where they feel that significance of, I'm not safe. Maybe it's even just basic job stuff, like you come to work late, like you're not really sure you did that transaction right.
Right.
But you can still go through all of that without needing safety to be the issue or fear to be the issue, and you can learn so much better from those processes, not having to deal with it on that side. I feel like cannabis can unfortunately bring in a heightened level of fear and paranoia. I challenge anybody who really says that deeply, because the environments where people say that happens, right? I'm a teenager again. I'm in a basement that I don't own with people I don't really know, doing a drug that's illegal, getting into an inebriated state. I can't drive myself home. I was like, the weed made you paranoid, though, right? Clearly, the weed. It wasn't every other.
It wasn't everything else.
That you were in. It's like you didn't own shit. You didn't have any money. You didn't know what was going on. It's probably like one of your first 5 times smoking. You're like, this weed makes me so paranoid. It's like it just made you realize you're in a bad environment.
Yeah.
But we blame the catalyst, not the awareness in a way. And so I kind of feel like that's one of those things to retrain people and be like, actually, when your paranoia hits in, give it time, right? You're an individual in a state of trauma. Do not tempt it too much, but also realize how much you were a part of that story and projecting it, and whether or not that was responsible. Because like I bet where you were explains a lot more of that feeling than what you did. Again, you do that at home with Mama Dukes. It's one of the best days of your life.
Can't deny that. I think it's Terrence McKenna that talks about the set and setting in different components of, let's say, exploration, internal mind, right? What's your favorite set and setting to be doing that level of reflection? Because I'm hearing somebody that is a hyper analytical person, somebody that is also hypersensitive to the philosophical natures to what you are doing at the same time, right? Talk to me about your set and setting when you're thinking about what you want people to feel when they're coming into your spaces.
Man, I got a hot take on this. I call it the ceremony, right?
Okay.
Now, the one thing is with recent technology, vape pens, I'm a dabber, probably 12 to 15 dabs a day. So much like you said with Biggie, like,
okay, so you're hit the high level.
Yeah, I'm like, don't chase me. I'm just gonna keep doing this. But if you want to step in and jump rope, like, we got you, But flour is Mother Nature's recipe.
Okay.
It has everything you need. Nobody can beat Mother Nature at cooking. And I think about the fact that in the days it was especially traditional and especially illegal, I would go through a ceremony that would create the environment. I think of it just like dinner. If you eat with all your senses, the food is much better. So if you cook at home, you get time to do that. You prep it, you smell it, you touch it, you see it. And then eventually you finally taste it. Every part of me has been able to interact with the food. By the time it gets down my throat, I'm already 2,000% into this. And your digestion is improved. Every part of your body is now in symphony to want that to work. And I found that sometimes with people who, especially vape pens, quick and easy, just step out real quick and do one. I was like, do you even notice how many times you hit that? Like, awareness is such a superpower that when we put it to the side, I feel like oftentimes you don't get as high. That might be by design. Maybe I'm in the middle of something where I'm just trying to take a quick break. I don't want to lose it in the experience and go into like full meditative state or something. So I thought, okay, the quicker it comes in, right, the quicker it goes out kind of, the less I notice. So I love almost taking a little longer than it needs to, like microphone Mike Lip used to call it in my day. You like sit on the blunt too long and tell the story till it goes out, or you're like, you get that thing 14 times, we pass it. And I think about how great it is that like time just changes when you're like trying to get to smoking so quick and then it takes forever to get done.
Yeah.
That ceremony of like sitting, pulling out a tray of odd objects that only touch weed. None of them are necessarily clean, but they only touch weed. That weird screwdriver thing, right? And all the things I've kind of collected over time with my grinders and stuff, and how I sit that down. And before I ever smoke, I'm already relaxed. I'm already de-stressed. I'm already like very involved with being present because all I'm thinking about is like trying to get that damn seal and cook the blood. Like everything was all about what I'm about to do. And then only that the moment after. And I felt like it's so rare and like we get to have a purity of thought. Maybe only at a red light, right? Like where you actually get to take a second and not think about everything. And it's like some of those moments I think were even better than the idea of being young because it was free. It was truly a moment just for you. You couldn't do anything productive except for just take care of yourself, like some self-care. And so that ceremony, even though with a real dabber, you kind of get a ceremony like that, nothing's better than kind of just breaking up the flower and like, oh, do you smell that? It's so great. Oh, it's so sticky. And you're like, see how every sense is now getting excited by just a plant. I never felt that way about spinach prep, you know, but great beef and broccoli.
I was gonna say you got some different type of spinach over there, man.
Oh,
That's fun stuff, you know. Man, there is so much that I want to jump into, Scott, but I also want to be respectful of your time. We got to get you back to Philly as well, too. I want to finish off with a couple different notes, right? You seem like a person that comes up with some good ideas, and maybe you've had a couple bad ideas back in the day, right? Can you share with me one of your best good ideas?
I'm not sure it's completely good. But currently in development, two small ideas.
Okay.
One, based on heavy science, right? We've all been in front of a big glass piece with water in it, right? It was something bong related or a bubbler. When you heat cannabis, it decarboxylates. It converts into an active form. For all the nerds who know that for it. So you have to kind of use a lighter or cook it somehow so it's not just raw. So my thought is, right, you get all this resin of bong and it's kind of an enemy. I'm trying to look to see if I could turn it into a hero.
Okay.
I thought, I'm not really into cow milk, but if you were, full fat, or coconut milk if you're looking for an alternative, if I filled my bong with coconut or cow milk, maybe I can make like a mudslide. I put some like chocolate on the edge, hit it as hard as I can for like a good half hour, right? Trying to cycle that dirty kind of bong water. Wouldn't it be inedible as a result of the fact that it would bind to some of the fats in the milk? And I could drink it. It might not be the best mouthfeel on planet Earth, but I go, this is a weird idea. I don't know if I ever feel like proving completely, but you can make some chocolate milk with the bubbles.
Listen, I'm going to tell you the flavor is going to be the determining factor for me on that one. It's definitely earth forward on that. That is both a good and bad idea at the same time.
It's like the person it benefits, I'm not sure I want to meet him.
I don't have any other questions on that one. That's
the
awesome.
other one was born, and I did make a prototype of this. I'll never sell it, but it was just trying to have fun with vapes more. Because, as I said, like vapes, there's no real ceremony. You just hit it real quick and it's gone. It's like microwaving your weed. It doesn't give you the biggest experience unless you really focus. So I thought, well, I kind of want to like slow it down. So I bought these children's toys, right? These multicolored, looks like a revolver, like a big old like crazy revolver. And I realized that vape carts fit into the slots. So I made a device I called the roulette. And the idea is you spin the chamber and then you can vape out of it and go, which cart is it? And I was like, I can never sell this. But it was an idea where I was like, but wouldn't it be fun to try to figure out like blind tasting, like what your terpene profile is or what strain that was? Yeah. I was like, in a weapon you put into your mouth. I was like, I'm sorry. Yeah. That part.
The roulette.
That's a slippery slope right there.
It's a very slippery slope.
That's a tricky one.
So absolutely high ideas for you.
I appreciate them both. Those are both good and bad ideas.
Like we need a puffing process.
We do need to change it up.
There's a good reason why regulations exist, right?
You know, I'm glad some things don't make it to the market just yet. You know what I mean? We got to make it through, a couple different ideation processes. We'll get something.
Right.
Different delivery system. It'll be okay.
Pick a card, any card. It's actually been pretty good today, you know? It's a little, there we go.
All right, Puff and Process. What was the happiest day of your life so far? Okay. I feel so. I'm not anybody's dad,
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like that's usually the default. I made a thing, so that has to by default, because if they hear it 20 years from now, they're gonna be like, "Dude,
Wait a second."
right?"
He's like, check the date. Wait, hold on.
The born on date's wrong.
Yeah.
But I would say one of the happiest days of my life in cannabis, it was actually when it happened. So I'm not trying to sandbag. This is actually a day that I don't quite understand. But I used to run a team. The company I worked for, Verano, as I said, we were in about 15 states. So I ran a team of 18 people nationally. None of us lived near each other. Everybody was separate. But I've never seen like almost 20 people get along so close with thousands of miles between them. We still don't really get to see each other, but we still talk. And like most jobs, you collect one person. I collected 18. It was amazing.
Man.
And I had this one summit down in Philly. I brought everybody in. I got to do all the ideas I wanted. We did best roller, best to nose, blind weighing weed to see if you actually know how much weed weighs. So it was like all the dumb ideas I had as a bud tender. I always wanted to see like a skills test, right?
I like it. I'm here for it.
Was an eighth, like you smoked weed, right? Like you got to show me that you know the skills. And in the midst of it, my philosophical nature came out, and I told everybody's got to present something, right? It's a summit. You got to present something. They're like, what do we present? I said 3 rules. Tell me why weed's so important to you. Tell me something about yourself that isn't related to weed. And then something that helps the team. And they're like, oh, are you going to really give us an open end? I was like, absolutely. So everybody did a better job than I could have predicted. They all chose a different angle on life or work or weed or love to be able to teach. And in the middle of it, for whatever reason, its level of intimacy was at a maximum. We probably had like a 4-hour group release, like crying like a child, like little, like I had to go run to my office and be like, dude, you are ugly as hell right now, just like leaking all over the place. And I'm like, I'm leaking at work on purpose with people I don't even live with, that I'm technically their boss, and like we're all literally just like hugging and like, oh my gosh, like what an amazing thing to feel so safe that you could be like childlike emotional and 0% judgment. I felt like this might be one of the greatest evolutions of like a group connection, especially with weed being such a great foundation to it, because like there's no right we have to get along this well. I think people in my family would have a tough time doing that with. But to do it with like, you know, strangers by a level of socialization, we only knew each other about a year, maybe a year and a couple months at that point. And to know that everybody was willing to invest the same amount in and get the same amount out, and still we remain as like a very tight group for that, it was almost showed me something that I felt was unrealistic. I know, you know, 2s and 3s, best friends in life, you can do it, but to do it through work,
yeah,
and to have like a legitimate psychological breakthrough, to know like now the world is that much closer. It's almost unfair. I felt like it's like somebody gave me the game genie for life, and I just realized that like you can actually get to that above Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to the next level of fulfillment, and it's work, like a place that usually you want to minimize, right, and maximize your time outside of it. So one of the happiest days of my life to understand that willing, voluntary vulnerability could ideally defeat anything, and weed is such a great catalyst in that category. I now am obsessed with just being able to almost let other people know it's possible. It's like you might not want it, but you can't tell me it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
This level of togetherness, and given how fractionalized that the states have become, and the government does a great job at encouraging it, I think to me it continues to make me feel in these times very, very cortisol-ridden, scary,
Yeah.
sort of where things go. There's this underlying thing where I'm like, despite the politics, I know if I can just get time with another human, I don't know if there's anything better than that.
Man, the great uniter. The great uniter for sure. I'm going to let you know right now, anytime somebody could work in smellscape, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And there was a few, I was going to say, you checking all, there was the Game Boy references in there. I was like, listen, man, I just need to understand.
64.
Nintendo 64 was in there. I'm here for all these conversations, Scott. You know, however and whenever we could plug back in and understand what you got going on, please let us know. Please keep us abreast of what's going on. And can you please let our listeners know how they can keep up with what else is coming forward with the travel agency?
Absolutely. Well, go to the travelagency.co. It's not .com.co. If you want to find out more about what we're doing, we just opened a 4th store in Soho. We're watching that one mature. And I would dare say, if you're into cannabis and you're like, is there an environment I can with this dispensary that really respects the fact I can come in any headspace?
Yeah.
The front office, it was designed to mimic an alien spaceport. That's what they told the architect. So given all the buildings are gorgeous, that one I feel like does a particular job, especially for the weed culture, given it's good old fashionable Soho. So I think they really matched up. For me, if you just want to see some things, I used to run a podcast. It's been mothballed for 3 years, but I might open it back up, gentlemen.
Hey, come on
Now
now.
that I'm in a
Get
good
the
market.
inspiration now, man. Come on.
US Chamber of Cannabis, about 140 episodes, a lot of like random folks in the market, CEOs. I actually met the guy who made like $9 million off of screensavers in the 90s. So
I need to talk to them too.
insane
Immediately.
about. Beyond that, I'd say if on the side that after you dose, just for the folks who really like some absurd shit, right? Because I'm a big Monty Python guy myself.
Okay.
I ran a podcast for about a year. It's called Year of the Sandwich.
Year of the Sandwich.
Food Conspiracies, Gourmet Conversation. I do it as a British man named David. I never break can't. But if you dose and listen to it, you might learn something about you might not want to know about, but it should keep you laughing the whole way, I hope.
Scott, we're going to keep in contact after this conversation, man.
I'm not using my free will enough.
I'm not doing enough. I'm the most interested man in the game right now. Let's make some noise for Scott one more time, please. Thank you very much.